Hello, friends. Many people love to travel, and understandably so, discovering the beauty of the world. Really? Alas, I have some bad news for you. There's a saying, the eyes of a tourist cannot see reality. Venice. What do all the tourists who come to admire this beauty know? That Venice stands on water. That all its palaces are built on millions of piles of, attention to detail, larch. And this larch, when immersed in water, doesn't rot. On the contrary, it hardens. Historians say the city was founded by refugees fleeing the Goths. That's why they settled in such a poor location, practically a swamp. Tourists will also be told about the 100 islands that formed the foundation of Venice, its power during the age of sailing fleets, and its trade links with the entire world. Now, let's not be tourists, but simple, naive children. Look, archaeologists have found the remains of the ancient city of Ultinum, and it was a Roman city. Here it is, adjacent to present-day Venice. Not a small legionary settlement, but a city the size of Pompeii. And this ruins the fairy tale of fugitives hiding from the Goths. After all, Romans lived here, and very wealthy ones, and not just some fugitives. But the most interesting questions arise from those who have studied arithmetic. The foundation of Venice is millions of piles. That's what historians tell us. Sounds good. But who drove them into the ground? Or rather, into the silt? Imagine, we're in that ancient world. Men in rags, knee-deep in mud, lifting a heavy block, up to 200 kilograms, to drive a 3 to 5 meter pile. How many piles will a crew drive in a shift? A couple at most. Maybe 3, maybe 5. That's 10 people who need to be fed, who need somewhere to sleep, and paid for their work. To drive 1 million piles for the construction of the Grand Cathedral, the Basilica of Santa Maria, they'll need 100,000 shifts. 300 years. That means at least 50 crews are needed. Then, in 5 or 6 years, they'll drive the piles into the mud, and that will be the foundation for the great building. 6 years for the piles. Are you outraged yet? Let's continue with the arithmetic. How much did the wood weigh? Just these piles. Larch from Siberia? Here's a scientist who insists it's larch from the Perm region. One pile weighs 100 to 150 kilograms. 10 million piles for all of Venice weighs close to 1.2 million tons of wood. How many tons could one ship carry? One sailboat? Even 100 tons. Then we'd need to make 10,000, 15,000 trips. Again, we're in trouble. To find that much construction larch, you'd have to cut down 3,000 hectares of forest. That's math too. After all, no more than 300 larches grow on 1 hectare. Who could have cut down such an area? How much did it cost? And then consider everything. Shipping to the ports? From Siberia? That slaves toiled for a pittance? Who maintained that fleet for cargo transportation? It turns out that the construction lasted for decades. And that's just the cost of the piles? The piles? Were impoverished tribes, fugitives from the Goths, paying for this project? Nonsense. So it wasn't impoverished fugitives. Then who? The great merchants of the Venetian Republic? Lived in tents for decades and built beautiful buildings? Provided funds? Almost a century. Nonsense again. Look, there stands Venice, the mainland part of the city. No piles, no oak or larch. Why build in a swamp? To impress tourists 6 centuries later? Absurd. Especially since there's not a single line in the archives about these expenses. Tourists are told about the merchant fleet, about epidemics and skillful quarantines, about the election of rulers, doges.
But nothing about the technology of pile construction. Nothing about the costs. And this isn't even the foundation. Not the walls, not the marble, not the cladding. Okay, let's move on. The foundation of the buildings is limestone from Croatia, 200 kilometers away on the Istrian Peninsula. The blocks that form the foundation of the buildings weigh from 500 kilograms to 3 to 4 tons. And according to the engineer's logic, it follows that the stone block was laid on top of a wooden deck submerged in water. After all, twice a day the tides push the water in and raise the level by almost a meter. How did they work? Blindly? Floundering in the water and lowering the blocks manually? More complications and no answers.
But these blocks were laid with meticulous care. Wherever they could be seen, during low tides and droughts, when the walls and even the canal beds were exposed, people saw the seams, fitted with a precision superior to modern standards. The seams here were 2 to 3 millimeters. Now we lay bricks with mortar, allowing gaps of 8 millimeters, 3 times as much. Therefore, this is the result of machine processing, not hand chiseling. With manual work, this would have taken a long time, weeks and months for each block. For thousands of blocks, this is unrealistic. Now, let's touch on more significant facts, ones that are obvious to everyone. Daguerreotypes from the 1840s and photographs from the 1870s destroy the historian's fairy tale about Venice gradually sinking into the water. We are told about a modern environmental disaster. A lie. These photographs show that the lower floors of the Venetian palaces were already at water level back then. Even then, during high tides, water flooded the ground floor halls. Even then, stair steps were submerged. During repair and restoration work on Venetian canals, something contradicting theory was discovered. Structures, stone paving, stair steps, door arches, were discovered beneath the canal bottoms, at a depth of 2 to 4 meters below the current canal bottom. These are streets, urban infrastructure, completely submerged, along with paving, thresholds, and door frames. This is not a pile-supported structure submerged in water. These doors were designed and streets paved when there was no water here. There wasn't. Another extremely inconvenient fact: lead in the joints of buildings, underwater. During restoration in the 1990s, Italian engineers discovered metal in the lower levels of the oldest Venetian buildings, iron brackets and anchors connecting adjacent blocks, and lead fillers in the joints between the blocks. Lead. Molten metal is poured into the groove between the blocks, solidifies, and firmly secures them, sealing the seam. And here's the question that official science ignores. These lead fillings are underwater, at a depth of 0.5 meter to 2 to 3 meters below the current water level in the canals. How did they pour molten lead into a horizontal seam in the water? How? Surely they couldn't have melted wire with a soldering iron. And this was in the 14th century? Or much earlier? I'm not talking about trivial details, because there is data that cuts through the layer of historians' lies. For example, wood analysis, pile analysis, dendrochronology. And this analysis has dated the oak to the 16th century. Not the 5th century AD, not the 12th, not the 14th, but the 16th century. There are photographs of excavations below the canal bottom. They disappear, they are denied, but they exist. It turns out that the canal bottoms are old pavements, paved with cobblestones. Who paves the canal bottoms? And these trivial details also testify. There is another city beneath Venice, a more ancient one, flooded, disappeared in a disaster, and no one wants to admit it.
much less investigate. Venice on a swamp, St. Petersburg on a swamp, and what majestic buildings, palaces, cathedrals, created by ragamuffins on the orders of rulers? No, we must admit, we know little about our ancestors. And tourists prefer tales of piles, of gondolas. And no one thinks, what kind of sewerage system did these residents have if there's water all around? None? Everything in the water and let the tide wash it away? No. Tourists don't care about such trifles. However, we all believe what we like best. All the best, friends.